our course on web development using ChatGPT, Ruby on Rails, and React. In the last lecture, we saw how to create child components in React and use them in the parent component. Okay, or you can say like how to shorten a long component into multiple components and then reuse them. Okay, now in this lecture, we gonna learn a very important topic that you need to keep in mind while working with React, and that is the key property. Okay, for example, if you come to the employee list component, and here you can see that when we rendering this employee row element, what we are using the key attribute. Okay, and in the employee row.jsx, we are using key attribute in the tr tag. Okay, so why we need to use that key attribute? For example, let's remove this key attribute from here. Okay, save it, and let's remove the key attribute from here as well. Okay, so now we do not have any key attribute into our DOM element. Okay, and now if you go to the browser and inspect the page, okay, and then if you go to the console, you will see an error that each child in a list should have a unique key property. Okay, check the render method of employee list. Okay, or you can also go to this link to see the warning list. Okay, and here you can see that why keys are important. It can be string, it can be number, but it must be unique for all child elements. Okay, now let's try to understand this key property using chat gpt. Okay, so here on the chat gpt you can ask a question like what is key in the react, what is key attribute in the react, and why it is important. And when you ask this question, then chat gpt will start explaining this thing to you. And once the response generation will get end, you can we will go through the response, and here you can see that in react the key attribute is a special attribute. And one more thing, that key is not the attribute from the html, it is the attribute from the React. Okay, and just like we use ID attribute in the HTML to uniquely identify an element in the DOM, in the React we use key attribute. Okay, so key attribute is a special attribute that needs to be included when creating arrays of element, particularly within JSX. Okay, each element in the array must have a unique key attribute assigned to it. The key attribute serves as a hint to React about the identity of each component and allowing React to efficiently identify which items have changed, been added, or been removed from the list. Okay, and the key attribute is important for several reasons, like, and you can go through all the regions here. Okay, and you can try to understand. Now let's ask ChatGPT that what happen if we do not provide key attribute. Okay, what happen if we do not use the key attribute for child elements? Okay, so because we need to know that what happen if we will not use, if we are not using the key attribute. So here the chat gpt you can see that what is saying that if you do not use the key attribute for the child elements in react, you might encounter several issues. The performance discretion, that react relies on key to efficiently update the UI means our DOM or whatever we are seeing on the browser. Without keys, React may have difficulty to determining which components have changed, been added or removed in a list. I mean, for example, if you do not provide the key here, okay, and let's say if you update an existing employee, or if you remove an existing employee, or if you add a new employee, then react will get some issue while rendering the new components. Okay, for example, if you try to remove a component, if you try to remove an employee row from this table, and your table row do not have any key, then you might face the issue. Okay, and the other difficulty that we can see, that component state loss, when components are re-rendered without keys. And what is re-rendering? Then like we are rendering the employees row within the employee list component. And let's say if we need to update a employee row, okay, so when we update an employee row, it should be re-rendered onto the browser, okay, so it is called re-rendering. Without keys, React may incorrectly assume that components have been removed and replaced with new ones. This can lead to the loss of component state, okay, and then unpredictable rendering behavior, and then potential React errors, okay. So in summary, omitting the key attribute for child elements in React can result in performance issues, loss of component states, unpredictable rendering behavior, and potential error. It's essential to provide unique keys for each child element in a list to ensure efficient rendering and proper component management by React, okay. So you need to make sure that whenever you are rendering some component or element within the loop, okay, like what we are doing, that here we are rendering employee row within the employees collection loop, okay. And now let me undo the changes here as well, save it, okay. So here you can see what we are doing, that this table row is rendered through this employee row component, okay, and this is rendered the number of times the length of the employees collection, okay. So whenever it renders, it should be uniquely identified by the key, and the key can be employee id here. And what is the id here? The id is the attribute that we are storing into the database. And for the primary key rule, what sorry, for the primary key rules, how we store the IDs, that it must be in the auto increment fashion and unique for every record. So ID represents the primary key, so it will be unique always. But if you do not have the primary key, okay, let's say you are storing, you are iterating an array which do not have the id, then in that case you must need to manage some unique combination of let's say uh, characters, numbers, or anything. Like, it must be unique if you are assigning it to a key property or a key attribute, okay. So this is why keys are important attribute in the React, especially in the JSX, okay. So whenever you are doing things like that, like iterating, you are rendering some component within a loop or within the map function or within the array element, you need to use the key property, okay. So I hope you got the idea, like why what are keys in the React, why they are important, and what can happen if we are not using the key attribute in the React components, okay. So that's all from this lecture. Try this lecture at your end and try to go through the importance of keys and what happen if we not use the keys, and try to remove keys from your pages. And now you can see that since I saved this file, and now if I go to the browser and on the React app, you can see, if you refresh the page, you will see that the error is not here anymore on the browser console. Why? Because now our element has a unique key. I mean, every table row has a unique key, okay. So just try this lecture at your end, and we will meet into the next lecture. Till then, tata, goodbye, take care, and stay safe.